Welcome to Game Changers, the future of play, where we explore AI, gaming, and the business of play. I'm Sarah Ramoz here with the podcast team. I have Toni Callahan and Stephany Ventura with me. And today we're excited to have Kim Verbonitz as our special guest, an industry leader who has spent her career at the intersection of technology, creators, and digital platforms. Kim has worked with thousands of content developers across live action, animation, games, and ebooks. At WME, she worked with the content creators to develop their ideas, create go-to-market strategies, and connect them with popular brands and platforms. Kim later built the developer ecosystem behind the LeapFrog App Center, working with creators to bring fun, educational games and content to millions of families. More recently, in her leadership role at Fingerprint Digital, Sandbox Kids, and AWS Game Tech, Kim helps studios to build, launch, and scale games. Across these experiences, Kim has developed a unique perspective on how creators stay relevant, how content becomes discoverable, and how developers build lasting relationships with their audiences. Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, we can jump right into our career snapshot. So my first question for you, Kim, you've spent much of your career working with content creators and developers across games, media, and digital platforms, like we mentioned. What first drew you to working in this space? I'm excited to hear.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go back old school. I think it really was, there were kind of three things ever since I was a young child that have kind of set me on the path. And I'll touch on each of those, but the three are: one, a real love for entertainment; two is a very active imagination; and three is a real passion for play. And so to the first one, I was very fortunate as a young child. My parents would take me to see a lot of movies, Broadway plays, even concerts and live performances, most of which were incredibly inappropriate for a child of my age, but it definitely put the bug in me for, for the excitement around entertainment. Active imagination, I was an only child. And so I didn't have the ready-made playmates that siblings provide. So I really had to learn to entertain myself. And I did that through a lot of drawing, art, creative writing, and role playing. And the third one, in terms of passion for play, as I did get older and did make friends in school, I started to play a lot of sports. I played a lot of board games and I played a lot of video games. And so all three of those combined kind of put me, I like to tell my kids that it was Stranger Things without the monsters, the military, and the mayhem. Which they say was basically nothing. But it was a great time. And, in fact, I was supposed to start my career in entertainment. And this will date me tremendously. But I had an opportunity coming out of college to work on A Different World, which was the successful, very hit, popular TV show spinoff of The Cosby Show, where Lisa Bonet, who played one of the Huxtables, Bill Cosby's daughter, went to college. And so I wasn't able to do that because I couldn't afford it coming out of school and having my student loans and too much debt for what that would pay. But eventually I found my way back to it.
Oh, that's really interesting. So, I mean, what came of that opportunity with the different world?
It went to somebody else. Yeah, it was, I mean, it was sort of my dream to do that and to just, move out to LA. I grew up in Pennsylvania, so moving to LA was like a fantasy that that I had for all my years as a child. But it just I think maybe the pay at that time was something like $15,000 a year.
No.
So to live in Los Angeles, to move cross country, and to try to support myself, it just wasn't quite possible, and pay off my debt. So yeah, but again, that's why somehow eventually I was able to circle back and sort of get to that passion for entertainment.
I love that. So earlier in your career, you helped to build out the LeapFrog App Center, which brought together developers, creating games, animation, music, ebooks, all for a new platform. What was it like working with so many different creators and developers during that time? What a fun
That
experience.
It was so fun and exciting. I mean, it was awesome. And the thing about that time, so we're talking kind of 2010-ish to 2000, 15-ish. And at that time, there was so much great content being created for kids and families because you'd had kind of the iPhone revolutionized smartphones, and now you had the iPad, and so all families were using these devices as kind of pass back entertainment systems and sometimes learning systems for their kids. The challenge for content creators and developers at that time was it was getting kind of impossible to get discovered or to get distribution. So most would create the content, put it in the App Store, and kind of hope that Apple would like it and decide to feature it. And so but without that, and that was getting harder and harder considering there were hundreds of thousands of pieces of content just for kids. They really struggled, because there was no other option besides the App Store. And so with the LeapFrog App Center and being able to create the LeapPad, which was this wholly designed device for kids and families, we were able to provide that to them. They got distributed through our platform. They were able to make revenue through our platform, and then once they were discovered there, of course, we were very willing to work with them to provide marketing that would then send you to find other content that they were creating if it wasn't available on our platform. So it was really awesome for me just to be able to help all of these young content creators and developers get that, discovery and distribution that they'd been looking for.
Yeah, that's amazing. I feel like during that time, LeapFrog, I mean, and now likely too, but during that time, LeapFrog did a really good job. And kudos to you marketing and reaching these people, because I had a daughter that was young at that time.
Yeah.
And we demoed a toy that connected with the computer, and you could put in the name and personalize this
Yes.
toy with music and sounds. And what an amazing way to reach your audience.
It was a great, the overall portfolio of products that they offered was everything from a connected toy that, a 6-month-old could start playing with, all the way up to this type of device or a gaming platform that was, again, just designed for kids and fully safe, kind of walled garden. And so it was a wonderful, wonderful place. And it was, just kind of magic because we had a lab at LeapFrog where we would do all of our kid testing. So any of the products that we were working on, we'd of course bring lots of families in and have them try it out and see what was working and what wasn't working and how engaged they were. And it just felt like you were sort of, working in the magic of Disneyland or whatever. Yeah. But it was a really special place.
Oh, very good. And what would you say were some of the biggest lessons that you learned from working with thousands of content creators and trying to bring their ideas to this platform?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think first of all, what content creators and particularly developers, game developers do is very complex, right? It's no less complicated to bring a game to market than it is to release a movie or a TV show. And, what developers were really looking for in the way of a partner was clarity and simplicity, as well as strong support. So I think that the first lesson was how complicated it was and complex and everything that they were working with. The second big lesson was that it wasn't just about us. So it wasn't just like we need these developers to feed our platform and get the ones that we think are going to be best for us. It was, how do we meet the needs of the developers and the content creators? And I think, at least the way I see it, I think there are four key things that they were looking for. The first was a very compelling value proposition, and by that I mean we had to be able to communicate that our target audience was aligned with their target audience, but that we could also reach that audience and have credibility within that audience. And the other part of that was what type of merchandising were we going to do? So if they would give us their content and we put it into this, multimedia platform that we had, how did they know anybody would still find it? Because it could be just as difficult as the App Store. We're just working with a smaller base. And then the last part of the value proposition was marketing. So how are we going to market their content within the platform, but then also how are we going to market the whole platform so that it would be discovered and it would be enjoyed by many people. The second piece was making it as turnkey as possible. So I think unless you're fortunate enough to have hundreds of millions of users on your platform, developers, content creators, they don't want to do work, to integrate, nor should they. It doesn't really make any sense for them to have to do that. The third was meaningful data, and that was a hard nut to crack for a while because we were able to provide data at an aggregate level of how our overall platform was performing. That doesn't really help an individual partner, right? Because they need to understand how the users are engaging with their content. What can they do? How can they change it? How can they make it better? And then the last piece was just a really good revenue model. And again, as a smaller company that didn't have the type of budgets that a Netflix would have to spend a big upfront licensing fee, a flat fee, we mostly worked with a revenue share model. And so for our content partners, it had to be clear that they could actually make revenue. And then it had to be clear that it was fair and equitable. And so typically that model, there are slightly different tweaks you can make to it, but essentially it's based on usage. So the more usage this partner gets within the overall scheme of things, the higher their share of the revenue pie. But that was the most important thing, was just learning that it wasn't so easy as just saying, hey, we're LeapFrog, we're the leading, ed tech company for kids, come on, be with us. It's like we had to really get sophisticated and refine and understand, the opportunity that we were providing and how to best present that to content creators.
Yeah. And I feel like during that time, it was still fairly new to different content developers and creators. So they needed to figure that out along with you, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that was the excitement of that time, was we all felt like pioneers, because we were all figuring this out as we went. And it was just a really interesting time of trying to talk to people about what they'd want to provide, what they might want to provide elsewhere, exclusives, non-exclusives, and just all the stuff. But for a brand new medium, like this really was, we were preparing to launch in 2010 and 2011. And we were still, one of my other roles at the company was to figure out what our, app store strategy was. Like, we had been a company that for many years had sold individual cartridges at Target and other retailers for $25 to $35 a pop, and now the same content, maybe not quite as good, but to the consumer's mind, the same content is now available for potentially 99 cents or, $2.99 or something like that. So it was super fast. It was a really interesting time because there was so much to figure out. But again, the content creators were so hungry to work with partners that could provide them value and really bring the halo effect of a brand name that meant something, to kids and families, that it was really a fun opportunity.
Great. That's amazing. So now that we've kind of covered your background, I want to jump into some core insights. So my first question to you is, how did your focus on player experience evolve, especially around content creation and engaging communities? And also the second part of that is, what do you see as the biggest shift in how developers connect with players today?
Yeah, those are really great questions. I think to start with the first, I was very fortunate that coming out of college, I started my career and spent the better part of a decade at Merck & Co. Inc., pharmaceutical company. And what being there really drilled into me and gave me was a foundation that said, you have to be laser focused on the customer, right? And it was twofold in that you had to have empathy for the needs and the wants of the customer, but you also had to be just completely obsessed with trying to get as much data, as much information about the customer as was humanly possible. And the department that really just formed that foundation for me was affectionately called BADS. It was Business Analysis and Decision Support. And we functioned as the internal consultancy to the brand management teams. And so for any new products that were either somewhere between 6 to 18 months away from launching, before launching, or let's say up to 24 months post-launching, this department and myself and the folks who were in that department ran all of the market research for the company. So that was everything from small qualitative focus groups in multiple geographies to large primary quantitative studies, to buying secondary research, to competitive intelligence, everything you could possibly imagine. And our role was to execute that research and then synthesize all the data and package it up in the form of strategic recommendations to the brand management team. So we were the internal, strategy engine for the company that was deciding. And again, just to set the kind of context for this, each of these products, and I think each of us in the department probably managed the research for two of the products were expected to be billion-dollar products, right? Like that is the level of investment and R&D and years and years and years of preparation that went in. So the stakes were very high, just to kind of set the stage. I think after building that foundation, when I started to move into digital and particularly gaming, I was really fascinated by the one-to-one interaction, as well as the ability to identify and segment fan or player communities for customers. But part of the learning that gave me is that continual engagement requires continual effort, right? It's two sides of the equation. And so what that means is on a 24/7 basis, right, you are always reading the data, trying to get more customer feedback, launching new content, enhancing and improving the player experience, and in as non-creepy a way as possible, trying to engage with your player community, as a developer, as a creator. And so that to me is the fundamental shift that has really taken place, which is the mentality used to be build it and ship it. And then, at some point we'll do some updates, we'll fix a few things and maybe we'll do some feature enhancement, to what it is today, which is live ops, right? I mean,
that's right.
There's still a life cycle, of course, but the life cycle is almost, infinite.
Right.
And this, let's call it game, has become your child, right? I mean, you are just 24/7
invested.
Oh my God. I mean, you're watching it, you're trying to help it, you're guiding it, you're trying to constantly figure out how the world is interacting with it, and what can you do? What more can you do? It's you're never off, you're never on kind of downtime. So I think that's, to my mind, the biggest shift, but also I think previously the focus, particularly when launching a game, was on the collective experience. And it was kind of like the film 4-quadrant model, which was how many boxes does it check? Does it appeal to women? Does it appeal to men? Does it appeal to this age group? And also, will everyone love it? Like, it's for the masses. So will everyone love this? But today, I do think there's been a really strong focus on the individual player experience, right? And so today, when you talk about, plans or success or live ops, whatever you're talking about as the maker, you're really focused on the customer journey, that individual, and how that individual customer journey works for every single customer, right? So it's really precision and kind of getting to that one-to-one level, versus kind of the big mass appeal and does it function for everybody?
Yeah, yeah, I like that. I mean, the idea of like buying the cartridge versus, like you said, like a lifelong kind of experience is completely different. So, um, the amount of data that you're able to capture now, the amount of changes that you can make over time, I mean, that's a big job. That's a lot.
Well, and just the experimentation, right? Like it's so exciting. That's what makes it so exciting is just you could just keep trying things. I mean, there's A/B test, but there's everything. I mean, you can just try whatever you want to try real time and just see quickly, what do you get? What's the result? What happens? Does anything happen? Does anybody care? And so it just makes it like again, it's a lot of work, but it's super fun, because you're just kind of constantly in it as opposed to sitting back and just saying, I've put it out into the world, and then I'll come back to it at some point, maybe in a year, maybe two.
Yeah, absolutely. Steph, did you want to say something?
No, I was just going to say that it seems like really a relationship with the customer now, right? Like the
Absolutely.
ongoing, you know, back and forth to keep them engaged and make them feel like you were saying their journey is I don't know, satisfying or makes them feel like they want to continue. So
Yeah, and I mean I could talk on this topic for hours, but it's fascinating when you look at the different the different types of audiences that you're providing. I mean, you have if you look at core gamers, right? Oh my gosh, like you can't mess up anything. Like if you do something that messes up, like a game that people are just fanatical about. But in the space that I worked in for a long time in kids and family, like think about the burden of that, what you're trying to do there, right? Like you're trying to provide some actual value, so that the family says, okay, this is better than just, passive consumption. Like I think my child is learning, they're learning these 21st century skills, or they're learning actual learning. Maybe it's, literacy, or maybe it's STEM, or maybe it's social emotional learning. But that it makes it again more complex and harder work, but also just so much more rewarding because you really see when you get that feedback that says like, wow, I couldn't get my child to do this or do that, and they were so uninterested, and now they play this game, they don't know they're learning, like they have no idea, they just think they're having fun. But here's what we're seeing, these are the actual skills that we're seeing getting developed, and the changes that we're seeing in their attitude and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool to be able to have that kind of impact on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And, kind of adding on to that, you talked about the evolution of kind of cartridges versus digital and how things are changing. Now that we have AI kind of everywhere around us, how has that changed day-to-day work and operations and even content engagement? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, what's amazing to me is that, we kind of have to acknowledge we're still just at the beginning, right? But already like AI is doing incredible things to accelerate and just optimize operations all throughout the game life cycle. I think beyond improving outcomes, what I think is really interesting is that, AI actually does empower people, and there are obviously a lot of concerns about what it may take away, but I think most people who work at least in the kind of gaming industry and probably the tech industry agree that AI can enable people to focus on higher level, more nuanced work, right? Like that's kind of the first big thing. And it also can help people to think more holistically about the overall user experience, and give them that opportunity. But I think beyond improving, those operations and outcomes, the analytic insights and the sort of precision tools that AI provides enables that continuous improvement and enhancement that live ops demands, as we just said. So I think it really is part of the virtuous cycle, as opposed to something to be afraid of or worried about, because it should, if you're using it well and fully integrated it. And I just saw a really interesting piece today in Fast Company about, again, AI give some people AI in their title and like send them off to do whatever AI is. It has to be fully integrated with your business plan, with your economic results, right? And so like that I think is what's really interesting in gaming, is that it has already changed so many things in so many ways, but what it offers is still almost barely tapped, to start really playing around with what does it free you up as somebody working on these projects. What does it free you up to do, and how can you do so much better by your customer in using it?
Yeah. I like what you said about too, it enables kind of the analytics and the deeper diving, and it creates this entire new kind of sphere of what you're looking at and how you analyze things. That's pretty exciting. And especially in your field, it sounds like data has been something from the very beginning that you're just intrigued with. So
yeah, very much so.
I have a question kind of piggybacking off of that. Where do you see like AI not really helping out, and like you need a human and their creativity still? Like where is that going to matter most, do you think?
Well, I think one is just the creativity itself. I mean, AI can do amazing things, but I do still feel like the human potential for creativity. And my husband and I were just having a big conversation on this as it relates to music, because he's a musician by hobby, and what does it mean? And will people, eventually be willing to just purchase music that's all AI, made? But certainly it doesn't seem like they'd be willing to go see an AI performance, would they? Would they be willing to just, although I think that's what Justin Bieber kind of did at Coachella this year. That was very divisive, but like, could they just go watch an AI generated performance? But so I think that creativity and just, the human ability to think humanly about creative pursuits and what that means and how people can engage with it. And again, empathy, right? Just to have that empathy and understanding of your customer, your user, your player, whoever it is. Like I maybe AI at some point will be able, who knows what the limitations or the abilities are. But I don't think in the next at least couple of decades we're going to see it be able to have that human, emotional capacity and be able to really think through, all of the components that are necessary to give your users the best possible experience that they can have.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that. I like the connection that you made too between like the music, right? The live interaction and what do we go to concerts for? To connect, right? I mean, everybody's singing together and this is the artist. So it kind of brings a different way of thinking about AI to the picture. I mean,
absolutely.
What parts of that music experience could be automated by AI, but what parts do we still crave the human connection?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to see several concerts in the past couple of years where I took my daughter to see Taylor Swift, and like that is an experience that for the Swifties, like you have to know the whole history, right? You have to understand who she is, who she was, like the whole experience and everything that's used in the concert is like all has to do with this whole life that she's lived. And then we went to see Coldplay about a year ago, and Coldplay uses all of these different things within the environment, within the arena, to make it a very connected experience as well. So you feel like you're all one. Your people are literally jumping to power the whole event because it's like a floor that is kinetically charged, and so it's powering the concert as they go, and lots of stuff like that I just think it makes it so much more interesting than just listening. And we had the same conversation about sports. Would people go to see a live sports event where it's robots? I mean, I don't know, maybe eventually they would, but that sure doesn't sound fun to me. I want to know that there can be some error, some mistakes are made and some judgment calls are maybe questioned, and that's what makes it interesting. It's not just incredible performance. It's like all of the stuff that the human frailty, right, and everything that goes into it. So yeah, I think they're just, I mean, we could talk forever. It's just so exciting. Like, who knows? Who knows? Like, I try to think about, like, when my kids are my age, like, what will they accept? I don't know.
Definitely.
Maybe they don't think they need any of this stuff that I think is so important to the experience.
That's so true. I heard an AI artist sing recently, so it was just like, I don't know, AI made a song and it was a blues song. And I just couldn't get into it because it sounded too similar, like the little inflections and the pain you hear in the voice like wasn't there. And so it's very interesting to think about how humans' emotions, bring something to the table, I think.
Definitely.
When we're talking about creative stuff.
I think most people believe that artists tend to make their best music when they're a little less happy.
Yeah.
It's like when they're old and fat and happy, they're kind of like, okay, it's okay, but it doesn't have the same pain and emotion that it does when they seem younger and hungrier. So yeah, I think it's just going to be amazing to see how it evolved. There was also the crazy kind of discussion around the AI actress. I think Tilly, the AI actress that was generated, and again, people believed she was real. She was in stuff. She wasn't in, like, the Steven Spielberg movie, but she was in stuff, and so it just goes to show, like, you can put somebody in a film or a TV show, and how would anyone know if they're not human? So.
Very true. Well, I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to let Toni kind of jump into the rapid fire. So you worked for a large cloud company helping developers to build, run, and grow games. So I'd love to hear about the developer onboarding process. What are some of the key steps that ensure a successful relationship? I think it'd be interesting to a lot of our listeners too.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a bit of a contrarian's point of view, but it wasn't great for smaller developers, is what I would say. And as we all know, the vast majority of game developers certainly are smaller developers, right? And so the challenge for big tech companies is that, and this may apply to other industries as well, but the challenge is that the 80-20 rule focuses their attention on large enterprise customers, right? And so for gaming, we could, right, it could be Supercell or EA or Riot or Epic, you can name the companies. And so those customers get a very large dedicated team and essentially 24/7 concierge service, let's call it that. Smaller developers get a self-serve portal, which in itself could be totally fine. The problem is that it has to be efficient, it has to be genericized across all industries. So that portal doesn't speak to game developers at all, right? And so one of the initiatives that I started was to work with a colleague who's an expert in UX design, and to try to reimagine the game developer onboarding experience. And the thought we had was you could use AI tools to really customize and personalize their experience by, asking a few questions and getting a little bit more information than you typically would. And then you could guide them through their exploration of services. And I think what's so exciting is that, to make that experience better, is that now you can use agentic AI, and it can essentially be a helpful companion or a guide, so that you can vastly improve that developer onboarding experience regardless of industry, because now you can customize it for anybody. But that, I wish I had a much better. So again, large enterprise, I think, is totally good. Like, they're taken care of, they've got everybody they need. But smaller developers, regardless of industry, it's really hard for them to dig through, especially like the company I was at, which has 200 plus different services, and so how do they know which of those are right, and how to get started, and make for themselves kind of the right kit that would really help them. I think it's going to be important to continue to use AI to help that experience, because what you don't want to do is seem like you only service, the big guys, the big customers. That's a death spiral. So you have to be able to go at least somewhat down the long tail, and make sure that you're still being welcoming to all the rest.
Yeah, yeah,
And also,
absolutely.
all I was gonna say is, in the gaming industry, like many other industries, today's two people in a garage is tomorrow's Epic Games. So like they all started there. They didn't start as a big gigantic company, and so like that's part of the trick of it, right? It's a hit-based business, and so you have to be able to provide service to everybody in the hopes and hopefully the reality that many of those will then become extremely successful and pay dividends back on that initial service that you provided.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I can see that. And especially with a small team, I mean, you make a wrong move or you're not getting the visibility that you need and you have to pull out, right? You have to go and
Yeah.
find what works or else your business is going down. So I definitely can see why that would be super valuable in the situation.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely, especially with how competitive it is these days. And, that's things like that can be coming from a garage. It's like so much opportunity, but then you need to be very, very focused. So,
Yeah.
That's great. Kim, I have some fun rapid fire questions for you.
Let's do it.
Yes, they're meant to be kind of quick question, quick answer, but feel free to elaborate as much as you would like. It's kind of like a nice lighter way we like to kind of finish the show off with. So my first question is, what is either your favorite video game or favorite gaming memory?
Yeah, so I think aside from watching my kids become little gamers in themselves, I'm going to go way back and date myself again. It was my friends and I unwrapping our Atari 2600 consoles, which meant that we no longer had to go to arcades, and we could now stay in the comfort of our homes in our pajamas and play Space Invaders, Asteroids, Centipede, Pac-Man, Dig Dug. It was the best of times. Like I can't even explain. Like, again, the Stranger Things reference. Like, that was a time when we went to arcade. We went to the mall, and you went to the arcade, and you went to the food court. But now we could just go to each other's homes and like play all these amazing arcade games. It was awesome.
I love that so much. It's very sweet. Yeah. And now you don't even sometimes need a console at all. So
Exactly.
Look at that.
Exactly.
I love it. And speaking of that, what is one tool or technology that you find you can't live without today?
So totally boring, but I have to say my phone. I mean, it's so magical and essential, right? I'm always connected. It's the portal to everything. And like, again, it amazes me. I won't be able to say this next year, but 20 years ago, I was rocking a BlackBerry and a flip phone. Like that was it. That's what we had, and we were cool. So
I love it. Yeah. No, I wouldn't know how to get to a lot of places without the phone.
Exactly.
So, yeah. What is the biggest trend in gaming or in AI that excites you?
Yeah, I think combining the two, AI in gaming, beyond what we were talking about, which is using it to enhance, either the developer or the player experience. It's really using AI to create healthy gaming communities and really trying to end toxicity in gaming. I mean, for some people, gaming's for everyone, right? And for some people, it's a lifeline. I mean, I could tell stories of people we've heard from who literally it was their lifeline. I mean, for my kids during the COVID shutdown, it was their only social interaction. It was their one connection to their friends that they had. So I just think, like, let's keep it fun. Let's be welcoming. Like, please, yes, people will find their communities once they come in, but I would never want anybody to feel like they're being kept out or pushed out or uncomfortable.
I love that. Very inclusive. Very sweet. What's one skill gaming executives will need much more of in the next 3 to 5 years?
This again, super boring answer, but I'm going to say leadership. And again, what I mean by that is, don't manage, like actually lead with endless curiosity and adaptability and flexibility. And, if you're working in gaming, like it should be fun. Keep that in mind, right? Like it should be fun for you. It should be fun for your teams, inspire, like get creative and enjoy all the tools that you have available to you.
I love that. Well, then that'll pass along to the gamers as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. All right, last one. If you weren't gaming, what would you be doing?
So in reality, I'd be working in some pocket of media and entertainment. I know that much. But in my fantasy world right now, I'd be getting ready to go on tour with Rush.
Oh my gosh.
And that is 100% fantasy because I have zero musical talent. But I do have a lot of tickets for this summer's concert. So I will be there as a fan.
I love it. That's amazing.
Perfect. Well, Kim, this has been such an insightful conversation. Thank you for sharing from building successful ecosystems to supporting game developers around the world, helping studios create, launch, scale games. Your experience has been invaluable. And I've enjoyed the conversation. This has been so much fun for us. And I'm looking at your background right now, and I'm looking at Mario Brothers and Space Invaders. It's super cool. It's just been a fun session.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me. It was really, really fun.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you, Kim. And just really quick for our audience, if you enjoy this episode, you can find Game Changers, The Future of Play on Spotify, YouTube, or our website, sukuraqs.ai. We'll keep the details in the caption below. Thank you again, Kim.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.